back end development, front end development is married together.
Right.
You know, which could take us into our next type of developer, which would be a full stack developer.
Yeah.
You know, which is a combination of both front end development and back end development.
So this is where we live. So
Yes.
I'm a full stack developer with the emphasis on front end.
Yep, and I'm a back-end developer with an emphasis. I'm
full stack developer.
Full stack developer with an emphasis on the back end. Now, I am serviceable when it comes to front end development, but you know,
and I'm the same way with back end, right?
Yeah. Drew's got a heavy front end
skill set,
and you know, mine has traditionally been just on the back end, and it isn't until recently in these years that I've been able to explore and get better at it.
And that's just due to age too, probably.
Well, it is. It's due to age, and it's
probably
due to
when you came in, it was heavy on the server side, so that's what you're gonna know, right?
Right.
And when I was coming in, it was kind of, you could take two different paths. You can do the new stuff on the front end, or and go deep in the back end. And I always wanted to be full stack. I think it's cool, but there are some limitations to being full stack. So it sounds like, you know how you would put it, a jack of all trades, right? Which we are, but you can poke holes in a full stack developer. I mean, that sounds bad, but we're obviously, if you have a front end developer that's been doing front end only for 5 years, and you have a back end developer that's been doing nothing but database work and stuff in the back end for 5 years, obviously you're full stack developer. It's not like we put in more time than the other two. So you're obviously going to be a little weaker in everything. You're kind of like a jack of all trades.
Yes, and you'll see in the development cycle how you know, someone who is primarily, you know, back end but is also, you know, operating in a role as a front end developer, you'll see that part of the cycle be a little slower than it would be in something that is strong suit. So you know, I believe in full stack development, me personally, but you know, you hit it on the nail. In my opinion, it's a jack of all trades, because someone who specializes in Vue.js is going to whip out, you know, and finish stories and you know, complete their work faster than someone like myself who does it only 40% of the time.
But you're just not in it all the time.
Right. And that's not to say it's a bad thing, but you know, some companies have to, you know, utilize full stack developers because they don't have the resources to break up their teams into just, you know, front end and just back end.
Well, not like they have to, like, all we could find is a full stack.
Well,
like,
no, I meant from a financial perspective.
But you know, it's I think there's some pros to being a full stack, because I mean, you can pay one developer and he can kind of do it all. I don't. So if I'm only a front end developer, I stop at the API call. I'm sending a request and then I don't know what's going on. I mean, I thought that's why I like a full stack developer role. Because I kind of know what's going on everywhere. I can move in the service layer, I can go in the front end layer, do this and that. Obviously I have a strength of the front end. So you would just think I'm a little weaker in the back end once you get into database reporting and all that stuff, obviously, and I'll admit that. And then you would assume the vice versa with you. If you had an emphasis in back end, you're going to be weaker on the front end.
And our first job that we worked together, we were completely full stack developers, where we handled a complete, you know, story for a specific piece of requirements that needed to be developed. You know, we both operated in full stack roles. And you know, when we transitioned from there to our last job that we worked together, that's where we had the separation of front end and back end development. And you know, we've seen both work really well together.
And it makes you serviceable as a full stack. You can do that. You can decide one day that, hey, I don't really like this full stack game. I like JavaScript in the front end way more than I like the database stuff. And you can make that decision and dive it, like you said at our last place. I was on the front end team and you were on the back end team. And we did not touch the other layers. We were not allowed.
Right.
Or I don't know if we weren't allowed, but yeah, we didn't.
Well, we
didn't
had
cross.
teams.
Yeah, we
had
didn't
teams
cross
and
over.
We had teams and responsibilities, and
even though
whereas-
that bugged me sometimes
Yeah.
because I'm like, I know I'm not afraid of the back end. I'm a pretty good back end developer myself, so I can get back there. But it was such a divide, and I don't like that, which is why I'm a full stack developer.
But it all came together on the data contracts. You know, what data was going to be returned and to the front end, and you know, that's the center point for both. And you know, like we said earlier, front end development has come a long way, and some of the business decisions that you make on the back end are starting to be made on the front end also. So, you know, you still get the same flavor and you still get the same responsibility and things like that. I after working in both, I think that there are some advantages and disadvantages, and we can always discuss that in another episode, because you know, when you split the teams, in my opinion, it kind of slows you know, delivery down just a bit.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, it depends if your teams aren't on the same level. If your front end people aren't as strong as where your back end are in their respective domains, right? Then it can definitely
sometimes a simple back end procedure that's going to return data to a front end you know, interface, there may be more complexity on the front end, because that's what's happening now these days. You're seeing more and more complex front end interfaces, and really, I need data. Back end developers, they write the logic to pull the data, and there may be some type of business rules that are applied to it, and it gets sent out to the front end. But there are far more decisions that need to be made on the front end, and far more massaging of data, and not just data. I mean, just the look and feel too.
And that's that makes Scrum really interesting in like a story fashion, where you have half back end, half front end. It's it makes it a little complex, and when you're trying to estimate and stuff like that.
Right.
Which you can easily separate that up. You can do back end stories and front end, I guess. But usually I think of a story as a piece of deliverable functionality, piece of functionality.
And in our last job that we worked together, they had stories, and then they had subtasks that were front end subtasks and back end subtasks, and they were just designated with the FE. You know, FE for front end and BE for back end. You know, so you still had to work together, and in my opinion, it flowed really well. It flowed really well.
Yeah, so let's talk about where they can start if they want to be if they love full stack development, or the idea of it, like we do. Obviously, we went down that path. I don't plan on changing anytime soon, so I'm gonna be a full stack developer if I can. Where can they start, do you think?
Well, you know, we touched on where you should start if you're a front end developer and a back end developer. You know, I think that if you do a mixture of both, then your learning curve will you know, you'll get better at it. But in my opinion, I think you should decide which one you want to concentrate on first, and learn that, be skilled in that, and then tackle the other side of the spectrum, whichever one you decide to go through.
And for these, if you're front end or back end, you're obviously going to go more depth into that. But as a full stack, when you're first learning it, you do want to emphasize on one of those layers at the beginning. But then at a certain point, you're going to be more breadth. You're going to learn a little bit here, learn a little bit here, and just learn it all at once instead of, I mean, and obviously you'll just have an emphasis. That's kind of how it works. So I don't know anybody out there who will be like, I'm a full stack developer. I'm just as good as at the front end as I am the back end. It just doesn't work out that way.
So. And you know, you can always start out with just simple, you know, I have a form and I want to, you know, submit user information, first name, last name, phone number, you know, and address. You know, get the front end to look the way you want it to look like with these text boxes and things like that. Learn to make a call to the server side, you know, and then learn a simple pathway to saving that information to a table in a database.
You know? and with all these, like, just take the technologies we're saying to use and just dive in, create something. Half the battle is just doing. So
Yeah,
Just
you
get
know,
get in there.
there's a starting point, but once you get past that starting point, you can start adding more and more elements to it, and
Yep.
that's how you evolve
how
and
you
you get
learn.
better and better. Yeah,
Yep. Yeah,
yeah,
because I know when I was in college, I did a lot of like technical reading. I would read deep in the books, and that's not really the way to like learn.
no,
I mean, it's good. You definitely need that, but
right,
I think you just need to start creating stuff. You have these people coming in that are really book smart, and they just can't practically create software.
right,
Like they know the theory really well.
right.
They just can't do it when it comes time to.